See, in my house, I love my son very much, but he has no rights. He has zero rights in my house. He can make a request, and I will take that request upon advisement. But he doesn't really have any rights. In the end, I'm the decider, and that's how it works. That's how good parenting actually is. Now, do I let him make decisions? Of course I do. When those decisions are in the best interest of his own self and worth. I do not let him make the wrong decision when it comes to huge events. Sometimes I let him screw up because he's got to learn consequences. But if it's a huge event, I'm the parent. I'm there to protect him. I'm not letting him chop his nuts off. You kidding me? He's a 14-year-old boy. He wouldn't want to do that anyway. So common sense has been thrown out the window long ago. We can go back almost 10 years when doctors started pushing the same nonsense that loon is pushing. Watch this.
To me, it seems ridiculous to have a kid at age 12, 13, 14 deciding whether they want to have biological children when they're 20, 30, or 40. I mean...
Well, they make the decision to kill themselves at 12 and 13. That's a pretty powerful decision. We take an oath. First, do no harm. If doing nothing is doing harm, you have to do something.
I would like to know if that NBC reporter now has the same attitude, seeing that she would be canceled instantly if she said that. Because they can kill themselves, so they should be able to have a sex change operation. Now, don't we as parents want to step in if a child is threatening to kill themselves? Don't you love that child, nurture that child, get them from therapy, get them to the help that they need? You don't let them do it. This is the reasoning. When I tell you, it has gotten so far out of bounds, beyond the sense of comprehension anymore, what they're doing. And you have Democrats out there that are proud to call yourself a Democrat? How? How do you call yourself proud to be a Democrat? Then I look at what's going on in Canada. Canada now has an advisory, by the way. They issue a travel advisory to the United States, warning travelers visiting the United States, not about Joe Biden letting terrorists into the nation and the threat that poses, not about the overwhelming crime. This is the warning. Some states have enacted laws and policies that may affect the SLGP2, Alphabet City. It may affect those persons. Check relevant state and local laws. They're afraid of us pushing back against gay and lesbian and trans. We're not going to push back. Nobody's being threatened with any violence. We just don't want you over-sexualizing yourself in front of our children and indoctrinating them into these crazy ways. So it gets even worse than that in Canada. Do you remember this teacher from Canada? She was spread all over the news. This was a teacher that got caught actually not even having those real gigantic triple Z breasts with the nipples showing in class. That's a man dressed as a woman. There he is out walking around, busted by another outlet. He doesn't even wear his costume when he's not in school, which makes it all the more creepier. Well, speaking of insanity, another school district in Toronto rehired him, and he's allowed to wear his nonsensical, oversized breasts because the school says they have an obligation to uphold individual rights, and they must treat everyone with dignity and respect. Do you think the kids at those classrooms are being treated with dignity and respect when you got a whack job like that, walking into class and expect to learn anything? How do you concentrate? Joining me now, TPUSA, that's Turning Point, contributor Morgan McMichael is back with us. Morgan, it is great to see you.
Good to see you, Grant. How are you?
All right, honest answer. Could you concentrate in class if the guy with the triple Z's is teaching your history?
Absolutely not. I don't think any student would be able to focus in a classroom with that costume in front of these kids. I mean, most of these kids are probably posting on the internet and making fun of their teacher versus actually paying attention to their studies.
So I'm not saying this as a joke, Morgan. I mean it. I was looking at all these headlines today, and I said, we have lost it as a nation, as a world. This is insanity, what's unfolding before our very eyes. What is pushing this insanity? Have you been able to figure it out?
I mean, it's absolutely crazy what we see going on social media, the indoctrination that's going on in our schools, stopping state functioned and supported grooming. I know Turning Point USA just put up a billboard in Nashville, Tennessee to stop state funded grooming, because if you're looking at these school districts and the sexual education classes that they're putting in these school boards, it is literally funding grooming of our next generation and promoting just sexual education to 5-year-olds, which really shouldn't be allowed at all. And then we saw Austin ISD having their actual school board sponsoring the event and having children promoted to go into the event. I even saw an email that went out from Austin ISD promoting parents and students to continue to go to these types of pride events. It's absolutely despicable of what's going on. And one thing that I want to make a note of is a lot of these more red states that people tend to not worry about. The reality is these red states with the blue cities are the ones we should be worried about more than just California and New York. We're seeing states like Texas and states like Tennessee being infiltrated by this same sexual indoctrination of the LGBTQ agenda.
Yeah, this stuff spreads like a fungus, and it will infect Texas. We've seen it from the big cities and moving on. And you see a school district that'll spend $8,000 on a parade. I know in this day and age, we look at that from government entities. We don't think that's a lot of money, but I don't want my tax dollars going to all of that. Do you think parents are unaware of just how sexualized this stuff is?
Absolutely. I think there's a huge number of parents in our nation that have no idea what's actually going on in the public school boards, which is why we need the parents who are aware to continue stepping up and going to those school board meetings and fighting for the kids' parents that don't know. Also, these kids, they don't feel the need to stand up against their teachers, fearing backlash. I know we just saw Jaden this past week stand up to his school district for having the Don't Tread on Me patch. And I think we need to see more of that when it comes to the transgender agenda, is having students actually standing up to their parents and their teachers and exposing what's really going on in these schools.
You know, in the end, Morgan, and I don't know if you're like me, but I don't care if you're a transgender. I think it's got to be some kind of a mental illness to want to dress up like a woman when you're a dude. But if you want to do that, go have at it. I don't have anything against being gay or lesbian or that, other than I don't agree with the lifestyle. But if you want to do it, fine, free country, have at it. The problem is when you start to bring my kids in, the indoctrination, the overzealousness of it, the hyper, I'm right and you're wrong mentality of all of this. That's when I start to get angry. But to the individual, I could care less. But we are so painted as villains, like somehow that we're, just hate these people. That actually couldn't be further from the truth for me.
100%. I mean, absolutely. They're attacking our next generation by grooming our kids. And then they're also taking away women's safe spaces. Like the sorority, we saw the man that is able to be in the Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority in Wyoming. What happened to protecting women's spaces? What happened to the original putting in of Title IX? Because now it's been completely morphed where women no longer have safe spaces, but men have all their safe spaces. And I think that's what the agenda has really been attacking, is biological women.
I would like to know if there is such a thing, normal, everyday Democrat out there, if there is such a thing. I'm not convinced there is anymore. But if there is, what they would say about a man moving into sorority house and a federal judge saying he's not going to define what a woman is. That's how you know we have lost it as a country. I'll give you the last word, Morgan.
We've absolutely lost it as a country, and that's why we need to keep our Generation Z, we need to keep rising up and speaking out against this agenda and keeping women's safe spaces safe, keeping women's sports safe, keeping our children safe, because if we don't, the liberals are going to continue to be more and more radical with their agenda of grooming our kids and allowing men to take over women's spaces.
Yeah. So true. I know you guys are protecting all of that stuff over at Turning Point USA. Morgan McMichael, it's always good to see you. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll see you soon. All right, Gold Star families take on Joe Biden and more about the massive amounts of military-aged men crossing our border. We have a live report, and it is unfolding right before our eyes as they flood in there. Also, tune in tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. John Solomon and Amanda Head will have exclusive interview with President Trump. You will not want to miss that. So the 2-year anniversary of that botched Afghanistan withdrawal that got our service members killed is just about upon us. You want to know why Gold Star families, those family members of ones that lost their lives, are so steaming mad? It's because of the administration response to questions like this. Cut 1.
President Biden planned to commemorate the events and the people who were killed and left behind as that happened.
So, as you know, the president had a statement recently when it came to the anniversary of Abbeygate. So, just want to state this as it was stated in the president's statement, that we'll forever honor the memory of the 13 service members who were stolen far too soon from their families, loved ones, and brothers and sisters in arms while performing a noble mission on behalf of our nation.
That would send me through the roof. If my son died that day and that's their response, you got to read a response. That's what Joe Biden does. That's what his spokesperson does instead of being sincere about things. So you better believe these Gold Star families are mad. Well, they met with members of Congress. This is the father of a fallen Marine, Jared Schmitz, who died that day. This dad is angry. I'm going to play you a couple clips from him because he's powerful.
Our so-called leader can't seem to even utter their names in public, not even once. And there couldn't be anything more disgusting and cowardly than the way you have treated us. You are a disgrace to this nation. You have no business having ultimate command over our military, and I regret not saying that to your face when I had the opportunity in Dover. I felt it more important to bite my tongue, but I also had more important things on my mind at that time, like receiving my son's lifeless body stateside.
Can you imagine what that dad's going through? Can you imagine if he would have told Joe Biden what a useless POS that the man really is? Can you believe I've got to talk about the commander-in-chief, an office that I had such respect for, that I literally have zero respect for, with this buffoon in the office? And sadly, these fathers and mothers have to go through this now because of his horrible decision that got those men and women killed. This is Jared Schmitz's father again.
Well, I stood there on the tarmac watching you check your watch over and over again. All I wanted to do was shout out, "It's 2:30. But out of respect to the other grieving families, I bit my tongue once again.
Remember that? When Joe Biden was checking his watch. You've got the bodies of American service members that lost their lives because of the naivete, maybe, the incompetence, most likely, and the absolute worst decisions possible on how to make that withdrawal go through. That's why they're dead, and Joe Biden's looking at his watch. This is the mom of Army Corporal Ryan Noss. Watch this.
I'd trade every medal, every award to have my son back. But he would go again if he knew, even now, the danger. Because that's what a good soldier does. They face death, and they're willing to do that for our country.
Of course that young man would go back because he's a hero. And we owe him a debt of gratitude that could never, ever be repaid. And Joe Biden apparently doesn't care about that. So you go from the botched withdrawal to what I would dub a successful invasion on our southern border. I mean, success is the only way it can be described. If Joe Biden wanted to ruin a country, he's doing a hell of a job at it by opening up the borders. You see the open gates that are chained open. We showed you these last night. Absolutely nuts. So antelope can get through. Well, you know who else is coming through? There's word now that a smuggler with ties to ISIS helped smuggle people into the United States, and now he is loose in here. And now this is raising alarm bells, as the CNN headline says. Oh, really, CNN? Thanks for the headline. You haven't been raising alarm bells on anything. We have here at America's Voice, though, Real America's Voice has been covering this like no other network. And our man, Anthony Aguero, who has been down on the border doing such a terrific job, is back down there in Lukeville, Arizona, which has really become the next ground zero in all of this. What have you been found? What have you found over the last couple days, Anthony?
So Monday night, Grant, we had 2,200 bodies come through this location alone. I've been out here for 2.5 hours live streaming on Rumble, and we've seen already 500 bodies in 2 hours that I've been out here. This just doesn't end. As I was waiting for my live shot with you, another group of individuals came walking from that road all the way down there. For hours they were walking. It's insane. The temperatures are 111 degrees out here, and I've documented van after van after van after van after van come through here. Some of the Border Patrol agents seem to be kind of frustrated with this whole situation, and very much so. They're very frustrated that they can't actually be out patrolling, doing their job. They're actually having to babysit these individuals. I sent footage of small scuffles of people, small arguments and scuffles breaking out amongst these individuals as frustrations and tensions are running high because of the heat out here, the lack of resources, the lack of water for some of these people. They've just had it. They've been out here, like I said, for a little over 2.5 hours.
We're looking at video right now of this little scuffle. There's some pushing and shoving. I mean, it's not totally out of control, but obviously they're not happy. Temperatures flare. People will start to get upset. But what is this facility? You've got tents there and what looks like hundreds upon hundreds of military-aged men camping out. What are we looking at?
So this is actually them trying to stay away from the wall where they're trying, where all of these individuals are coming in through. This is a much safer area for Border Patrol to be able to pre-process them, and it's much easier for their big Bluebird buses to come to this particular location rather than drive 4 or 5 miles in the isolated desert. They're not doing that. They're much closer to the main road here. There is one road that comes into Lukeville and one road that heads back out for hours on end. This is a very desolated area, and so definitely you could feel the presence of the energy out here. You could feel the presence of other people out here that run this particular area. Absolutely.
And what are you saying? Other people, meaning the cartels?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. They basically run this town.
Do they follow you, Anthony? Are you there? Are they watching you? Are they watching what happens to you? Are you nervous at all for your life because you've been so prolific in covering all of this?
For God is with me, who can be against me? Really, honestly, they have been tracking me the last couple of nights out here at the border. Last night, Border Patrol took notice of that. They actually escorted me out of that area into a different location so that I could continue documenting. But absolutely, they're definitely keeping track of what we're doing out here.
Anthony, lastly, is the Border Patrol agents, the guys that are on the ground, are they thankful that you're exposing this? Or are they upset that you're there?
Most of the guys that I've encountered out here have been superb with me. A lot of them have now just began following Real America's Voice News on social media, and they're very grateful that we're actually out here bringing coverage and attention to something that they've been wanting to get covered. They've been wanting to have somebody out here, and we're bringing it and doing it for them out here. They're very grateful that we're out here.
Anthony Aguero, well, when you see them tonight, you give them a big thumbs up. You tell them Stinchfield's Army is with them, and we're grateful for the work they're doing, even though I do believe they're handcuffed by this administration. And, of course, I tell you every night, I'm grateful for the work you're doing out there. Aguero for Texas is the Twitter handle. I urge people to follow you with the information you're putting out every day. Great stuff, Anthony. Thank you again. Stay safe.
We'll see you soon, brother.
All right, absolutely. All right, folks, you want to talk about staying safe? What about your finances? Your finances need to stay safe. How do you do it? I say protect yourself with gold. You do that by getting in touch with my friends over at Birch Gold. And you can text America to the number 989898. That's America to the number 989898. Birch Gold can help you take some of an IRA even and turn it into a precious metals IRA. That helps you diversify your portfolio. When you think about inflation, when you think about the uncertainty in the stock market, and certainly when you think about the government wanting to spy on how we spend our money, gold is a great move to counteract all of that. So again, my friends at Birch Gold can help you. Text America to the number 989898. Get with Birch Gold today. All right, coming up, the Biden administration and the CDC are pushing a new COVID vaccine, and they expect you to get it next month. I'm out. Not happening. That's next. Welcome back, everyone. I do not say this lightly, and I do offer you up a very sincere and strong warning. The COVID lockdowns may be on the way. Certainly the mask mandates may be on the way. We know the vaccine mandates are on the way. COVID hysteria, fear porn, all of it will be coming at you at a rate that will remind you of March of 2020 when this first broke onto the scene. All of it's about control. Here's Joe Biden.
Matter of fact, I signed off this morning on a proposal we have to present to the Congress a request for additional funding for new vaccine that is necessary, that works. And tentatively, not decided finally yet, tentatively it is recommended that, it would likely be recommended that everybody get it, no matter whether they got it before or not.
Recommend everybody get it, but notice you said a new vaccine and then you even admitted it, one that works. I don't trust any new vaccine coming out. Hasn't been enough time. I certainly don't trust the old vaccine that came out. No one can show me evidence that that thing has done any good but caused trouble. You can show me a lot of evidence for that. So President Trump, he's got a new attitude, I think, when it comes to these vaccines. I really, really do. This is him today.
The left-wing lunatics are trying very hard to bring back COVID lockdowns and mandates with all of their sudden fear-mongering about the new variants that are coming. Gee whiz, you know what else is coming? An election. They want to restart the COVID hysteria so they can justify more lockdowns, more censorship, more illegal drop boxes, more mail-in ballots, and trillions of dollars in payoffs to their political allies heading into the 2024 election. Hear these words: we will not comply.
No, we will not. Will you stand with me and not comply? Will you say no? Will you say enough is enough? Will you say no more forced coercion? Not doing it. You have to. That's what Stinchfield's Army is all about. I know you'll join me in this. Now, President Trump knows it is about the election. Every poll I've seen, the worst one has President Trump in a dead heat with Joe Biden. Most of them have President Trump up over Joe Biden, except there's a recent poll out that has Joe Biden in a landslide electoral college win. This is why the lockdowns are coming. Here's Dr. McCullough talking about it.
I think Americans are going to reject what's failed. We know that lockdown, social distancing, masks, they've all failed. Americans will do what works, and what works are nasal sprays and gargles. So the iodine, xylitol, colloidal silver-based nasal sprays, scope or Listerine, gargles started immediately as symptoms develop, are really effective.
Well, I've used all of those things, and they've worked for me. And I trust that man. He's become a good friend of mine. And if he says it, I believe him. I certainly don't believe the man who calls himself President of the United States when it comes to this stuff. I'll play one more soundbite for you. I usually don't play other commentators, but my buddy Dan Bongino's hilarious at times. So let me play you this clip about what he says about all this.
We now know the science. This is the mark of the imbecile. When you see someone approach you with this, laugh, walk away and say, sir, I'm sorry. I have an imbecile quota. It's already been met today. I can't talk to any more imbeciles. So thank you. Come back when you take the diaper off your face. I appreciate it.
See what I'm saying? That's why I love this guy. It's why he's very, very successful. Joining me now, doctor and former ambassador to Iceland under President Trump, and now U.S. Senate candidate in Nevada, as a Republican, of course, Dr. Jeff Gunter is with us. Dr. Gunter, great to have you on the program.
Grant, honored to be here. You displayed all the reasons, one of the many reasons why I'm going to be the next U.S. Senator here in Nevada. What we're seeing is complete insanity.
Well, it sure is. And as a doctor, not just as a politician, but as a doctor, these masks, the COVID vaccines, is there any evidence to you that any of this stuff worked along the way?
Not in my experience, I can tell you that. Viruses are very, very, very small, much smaller than the apertures on masks, let alone other cloth material that people have embraced for this. So absolutely not. I read an article yesterday that talked about maybe about an 11% benefit of wearing a mask. So think about it. People were precluded from seeing their loved ones as they were passing away. People were prevented from going to work. People were prevented from putting their kids in school without a mask that only has about 11% benefit of having nothing. So absolutely not. It's ironic that all they do is talk about the new COVID variants when there's an election coming up or when certain unions, people don't want to go back to school and teach our children. And we've seen it time and time again. And now Fauci and some of the other unions stay away from it.
Let me play a clip for you. This is from the CDC director, Mandy Cohen, talking about the unvaxxed. Cut 6, roll it.
COVID-19 remains riskier if you're unvaccinated, and riskier still if you are unvaccinated and not have had COVID as a prior infection. Your age and your underlying health conditions also matter.
See, they're so devious, Doc, and I'm not a doctor, but they don't tell you all the facts here. She just says if you have not had COVID. First off, everybody that's unvaxxed has probably had COVID along the way, and they have far greater immunity than anybody that has been vaxxed. The vaxxed people are getting it at a rate 4 times greater than the unvaxxed right now, Doc.
and shedding more virus too. There's no evidence there's no evidence to show that they're not only not getting it, but there's evidence to show that they're shedding more of it as well. These guys are variants of government gangsters. They are the medical division of the government gangsters that we're so familiar with, who've been attacking the greatest president we've had in the United States since Abraham Lincoln, Donald J. Trump. This is a medical variant of that. And honestly, I think one of the greatest dangers that we're seeing going on right now is this growing propaganda machine coming from these guys that are trying to prevent us from electing Donald J. Trump to be the next president of the United States. It's shameful.
All right.
We all know that when you mix politics and medicine, you get politics. And that's what we're seeing.
Yes. I also know that when you mix the government with medicine, somebody sneezes, everybody else gets freaking the flu. I mean, like, literally, government is the worst thing possible to be mixing into medicine. Let me play this clip from you. KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, Joe Biden spokesperson, talking about the COVID shots. Cut 5.
There'll be an updated vaccine mid-September, I believe. So we know that, as you all know, vaccinations against COVID-19 remains the safest protection for avoiding hospitalization, long-term health outcomes, and death, which is why we are going to be encouraging Americans to stay up to date on their vaccines.
All right. Dr. Jeff Gunter was running for Senate in Nevada. This idea of death and COVID, is this a serious issue right now, today?
Absolutely not. In fact, the CDC could go look at the recent statistics that show something like about 1% of deaths right now are being attributed to COVID. So this has more to do with elections. This has more to do with scaring the American public. This has more to do with Donald Trump being very high up in the polls than it has to do with potentially dying from COVID. They got it wrong the first time. They get it wrong every time. And it's deja vu all over again with these guys.
All right, I got to ask you real quick, because you're running for the United States Senate in Nevada as a Republican. You mentioned government gangsters, so I know you must know my buddy Kash Patel, obviously. You've mentioned President Trump a couple times. Really quickly, you a Make America Great Again Republican? You a Trump guy? You on his train? Where do you stand on that front?
I stand on that front 110% behind the greatest president of the United States, Donald Trump. The hardcore reality is my opponents, both in the primary and the general election, are never Trumpers. They just are. They will try to fool the voters out there. But Donald Trump is our leader. I will carry out America First policies. I did it throughout my term in Iceland. We had 0 COVID infections and 0 deaths. And we're going to actually pay attention to the real science, which is the American people, and they know, just like your guest before said.
Will you agree to a cage match with Dr. Fauci?
Yeah, I've been watching Fauci since 1983. And the minute he came back on the board to this, I knew America was in trouble. And he purposely misled the American people. But absolutely, yes. And by the way, that one will happen.
Dr. Jeff Gunter, I appreciate you coming on the program tonight. You're a good guy, and I wish you luck in this race.
You guys are doing God's work. Log on to drjeffgunter.com. I'm running for the U.S. Senate in the Trump lane, and we will make America great and Nevada great. God bless you all.
There you go. Pay his website a visit, folks. Thanks, Doc. All right. Joe Biden talks a lot about how he's lowered all sorts of prices, including gas, food, and medicine. There's just one problem. None of that's true. other words to describe the Biden administration, of course, is delusion. Roll, Kamala Harris.
I want to thank, of course, our nation's champion, President Biden, for your leadership and commitment to lowering costs for working families in every way.
Lowering costs for working families. Costs are up almost 20%. I think it's 17%. The cost of goods is up since he took office. Gas prices is still double and climbing from when he took office. What is she talking about? So Joe Biden had this to say about his economic policy.
The Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal, I don't think they meant it as a compliment originally, started referring to my economic policy as Bidenomics. Well, guess what? It's working. Yeah.
Please explain to me how it's working, Joe Biden. How? Ask any American family. The cost of their expenses is up 17, almost 20% this year, and you're telling me Bidenomics is working? No one wants to invest in this market anymore. Not just the stock market. I'm talking investing in businesses. The uncertainty is so out of control. Take it from a guy, a small business owner who's owned a number of small businesses. I don't want to put my money in a small business right now. I'm sticking with the TV and radio. I'm not putting my money in anything, not with the uncertainty of Joe Biden in office. Not happening. We'll run one more from him. Let's run this about drugs.
A drug company that makes a drug here in America, if it's sold in Chicago, you can buy the same drug in Toronto or Paris cheaper than you can buy it in Toronto. In Chicago.
So, turns out the Biden administration is announcing that Medicare would name some 10 prescription drugs. And I got this from an AMAC article. And so this says basically that the Biden administration announced that Medicare would name some 10 prescription drugs it would subject to direct price negotiations if the companies that created the drugs refuse to kowtow to Medicare. They will be forced to withdraw from Medicare and Medicaid coverage or face a 95% excise tax. So the big question is, what does that actually mean for us? Well, anytime you take free markets out of the equation, I promise you, it is never good. Well, joining me now from AMAC Action is Senior Vice President Andy Mangone. Did I say that right, Andy?
It's Mangione.
Mangione. Well, I'm Italian from New York. I should know Mangione. I apologize, my friend. Andy, what does this do to us now?
Well, Grant, let's unpack the reality of allowing the government to mandate prescription drug pricing. First, the government never negotiates. It mandates. Federal price fixing of pharmaceuticals gives government bureaucrats command and control over Americans' health care. Price fixing, although touted by the president that it will lower costs, will actually increase drug prices and reduce access to affordable generic and biosimilar alternatives due to the lack of financial incentive for drug manufacturers to develop them because they can't set the price for their own product. And this is not just me speaking, Grant. In August of last year, the Congressional Budget Office warned that this pricing scheme would increase the launch prices for new drugs that are not yet on the market. Mandated federal price fixing will destroy current and future innovation. And according to the research from the University of Chicago, this lack of R&D will occur because of the lost revenue drug companies will experience because of government price fixing. And Grant, here's a scary, scary statistic. This same University of Chicago study estimated that the drug price controls would reduce research and development by $663 billion through 2039 and result in 135 fewer new drugs being approved.
All right. So one of the things I want a lot of our viewers, and we have seniors that watch the show, a lot of them. I joined AMAC. I mean, it's good and bad because it means, I'm getting older, but I'm 54 years old, and I joined because I can't stand AARP. Their liberal woke agenda is out of control, and I think a lot of seniors don't understand it. But AMAC is fighting for this kind of stuff. Prescription drugs certainly hit seniors home. Joe Biden and that administration is not good for the prescription drug market, is it?
No, not at all. AMAC represents over 2 million people who typically benefit the most from the latest research and development for new drugs, particularly cancer patients, Grant. And price-fixing Medicare drugs by Joe Biden puts their health at risk.
All right, so Europe also puts price caps on, right? And so they've got to keep these prices low in Europe, of course. And then what happens? America eats the cost, correct?
Right. That's right. And keep in mind, I mean, yes, European price controls are in existence, but that's why 43% of all the new drugs are developed here in the United States. Not a whole lot of innovation going on in Europe right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where free markets come in. Free markets and innovation is a good thing. Now, AMAC talks to members of Congress. Are you getting any traction? Because it's going to be Republicans that are going to push back against this to make sure we keep the cost low and we keep development up. You getting any traction from lawmakers in Washington to push back against this?
Absolutely. Kathy McMorris Rodgers and her team, the Republicans in the House, they have introduced alternatives to these measures that are in the Inflation Reduction Act that offer price transparency, that will inject free market competition into the outpatient prescription drug supply chain, as well as the hospital supply chain that will lower costs across the board, not just for seniors, Grant, but for every American.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the work you're doing. I'm glad I'm a member now. And Andy Mangione, I promise I won't botch the name again. It's an easy one. Who was Chuck Mangione? You any relation to Chuck Mangione? Who was that guy?
Chuck played the flugelhorn. Don't you remember? He did all the music for the 1980 Olympics. He's from Rochester. Right. We're all from Cleveland.
Well, there you go. That's why I'm an AMAC member, because I remember Chuck Mangione from the 80s Olympics. I appreciate you so much, and we'll talk again real soon.
Thank you, Grant. My pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, folks, don't forget, amac.us/grant, okay? amac.us/grant. That is where you can do what I did and join AMAC today. All right, coming up after the break, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell freezes again, and it is sad to watch. We'll play it for you next.
Here are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets at offthepress.com. All eyes today will be on Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas as Hurricane Idalia barrels across with 115-mile-per-hour winds and huge storm surges. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has warned everyone to get out of the way, warning that it is a killer. On Capitol Hill, staffers are getting ready for Congress to return next week, when spending will be in focus. Conservatives claim they are ready for a fight, even if it closes Washington. 5 Proud Boys face sentencing this week in the January 6th riots, and prosecutors are hoping for lots of jail time. If the judge calls them terrorists, like prosecutors want, the terms could be historically long. And voters have had it up to here with Washington's spending on Ukraine, and not the border wall. By 2-1, they believe stopping illegal crossings is a bigger deal than Ukraine. For stories like these and more updates all day long from your favorite news outlets, go to offthepress.com.
All right, first off, folks, all of you know I've been a very harsh critic of Mitch McConnell. I think he's done not the job that needs to be done, and he's been weak when it comes to fighting back against the Democrats. But I will offer this up. I want everyone out there to pray for this man. All right, he believes in what he's doing. I don't believe in how he's done it, but I don't want to see him ill of health. And I want you to pray for this man. I'm going to play this entire clip because it's hard to watch. This is why Mitch McConnell needs to step down, and he needs to step down soon and get some help.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026? All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator Benny.
Yep.
Okay.
Somebody else?
So my words couldn't do it any better justice than just letting that play out. That is sad to watch. It's harsh to watch. But right now I need strength in the United States Senate. I don't need weakness. And I need resolve. And I need someone who has the ability to physically stand up to these Democrats right now. Mitch McConnell doesn't have that. He did answer a question after, so he didn't just get rushed out. Watch this.
Okay, I think we can do one more.
Senator, what is your reaction on Trump's latest indictment? Would you support him as a nominee?
It's a question about Trump.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment about the presidential race, either on the Republican side or the Democrat side.
Okay, thank you all.
That is not the leader of the United States Senate that I once knew. I can disagree with him all I want. He was in command and he had control. He no longer is in a spot of command and control when it comes to the United States Senate. Please, Senator McConnell, get yourself some medical help and step down from the United States Senate so someone else can take over. We thank you for your service. We wish you well, but it's time to go. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. God bless every one of you. Stinchfield's Army rolls. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.